What is up? Welcome to the Threewind podcast. I believe this is episode 7, and I apologize I guess not in advance, but I apologize for not being here last week, for us not being here last week to do the podcast. School started, sports started, everything kind of got jumbled up, and we lost track of time. We like to record this on a Wednesday or Thursday. It's currently Wednesday when I'm recording this, and then we put it on Friday. So with scheduling and stuff, I believe I had like a soccer game Thursday, couldn't do it. Wednesday, they both had work. So here I am again on a Wednesday because I have a soccer game tomorrow. Had a soccer game yesterday, so I'm squeezing this in here. And once again, Eston believe is at work, and Charlie is has baseball already in the fall for a spring sport. It's absurd, but here I am. I said I think I'll be all right, and I'll take the liberty of doing the podcast by myself for episode 7, so that I can talk about as much basketball as I want, unfiltered. So if you don't absolutely love basketball, you should just stay here anyway because it helps me out a lot when you do. Um, but it's not just going to be about basketball. I mean, I'm not going to get into other sports really, but I'm just going to be solo talking about what I want to talk about. I'm going to talk about Threewind stuff. Since I am the driving force, the motor behind all Threewind sports content, I figured there's no better time than now to go ahead and tell you all the stuff that I have planned for Threewind, and everything that's included within it. So I'll do that as well. But yeah, it's episode 7. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show. I guess I'll just start with, again, basketball is really all I'm going to cover today as far as sports goes, and then I'm just going to do my normal, try to be funny and not really be funny all the time kind of stuff. Um, as far as basketball goes, of course, we're not in the season, so you wouldn't think there's a lot of, crazy stuff going on. Of course, baseball's right in the middle of the season. I guess we're past the middle of the season in MLB. NFL's preseason just now starting. It's about to start, and then college football also about to start. So in the coming weeks, we'll have a lot more content as far as I go. I don't really delve into other sports, and we'll talk about that later as well because I want to start delving, if that's even a real word, into other sports. And so that'll be a good transition topic when I run out of basketball things to talk about and begin talking about what I know nothing about, and that'll be wonderful. But as far as basketball goes, really all we've had so far is off season, which NBA is known for being one of the better sports for off seasons, just because they have big names and faces. And so yeah, with off seasons in full swing, and also summer league. So we're getting to see rookies play. All the attention's put on those guys, and of course off season. So I'm not going to go into a bunch of signing and trades and free agency because that stuff's boring. And I honestly need to do more of that on the YouTube, like doing just where I talk by myself and rant for about 11 to 13 minutes about free agency and teams doing this and that and game recaps, even though there's no games right now. But I'm too lazy and I have a lot of stuff to do. And I usually just will do that on my TikTok. It's Threewind Sports TikTok. And a much shorter, easier versions that take me about 3 minutes with no prep time instead of like 15 to 20 minutes with limited but still prep time. You know what I mean? So yeah. But as far as basketball goes, summer league is where I kind of want to put most of my attention on. Also, before I really get into talking, I during the soccer game on Saturday, I went up for a header, and this dude hit me right in the face, like hard as he could in the face. My tooth goes straight through my bottom lip, and I thought my tooth fell out. It hurt. It was horrible. I was bleeding, and not like grotesque, but like bleeding and like swallowing blood, of course, running around on a soccer field swallowing blood and getting to the point where I was dizzy, as you should. But I thought my tooth had been broken out. It hadn't, luckily, not even chipped, but it sure feels like it did, and it still hurts right now. And then the bite where I bit through my lip on my bottom lip, has is trying to heal and is sore right now, and it is absolutely atrociously painful to talk for long periods of time, which is exactly why I'm currently doing a podcast for probably 30 to 40 minutes by myself of just me talking, because I'm willing to put myself and my life and my well-being on the line for this. Because right now, and I won't say the brand of this, and I'll hold it like this so you can't see it, and it's a small can. My hand isn't really that big. Drink is the only thing keeping me alive because I have to keep that sore moisture on it as much as possible, because as soon as it dries out, it feels like someone's jabbing a needle into my lip. It's horrible. But as much as I know you care about that kind of stuff. Let's talk about NBA Summer League. So I'm a Utah Jazz fan. I say that every single podcast. It's right. I get this mixed up because it's backwards, but it's right here, right there. And I'm a Utah Jazz fan. I think I've told the story on the podcast of why I'm a Utah Jazz fan, but I'm here and I'm by myself, so I'll say it again. I'm a Kentucky fan. Oh, God, I'm so bad. Over there, high up in the corner, you can kind of see some of the flags, and whenever all three of us are here and it's backed up, you can really see them. Um, which means I hate a couple of teams. I hate Duke. I hate North Carolina. I hate Louisville. I dislike a couple teams. I dislike Indiana and UCLA, Evansville. But most of the time, whenever teams like Duke, North Carolina, Louisville are in the tournament, and let's say UK has been knocked out because John Calipari's their coach, I root against them, of course, and I root for whoever's playing them. So back in 2010 or 11, and I get the date mixed up because Butler was there twice. But in one year they lose to UConn one year, and the other year they lose to Duke. But the year they lost to Duke, Gordon Hayward was their best player, and it wasn't even close. Like, he was their best player by far. No one expected Butler to be there. I mean, they weren't a bad team, but no one expected Butler to be there. And they were being led by this guy who looked like he was 13. I mean, he looked genuinely like he shouldn't have been playing a sport at a collegiate level. Nevertheless, in the national championship game, one of the biggest games in any sport, and he was just mopping the floor with Duke. I mean, single-handedly mopping the floor with Duke. And everyone was rooting for Butler. Everybody hates Duke, and but Butler ends up losing. Who cares about that? He almost hits the greatest game winner of all time at the very end. I mean, it goes in, it hits the backboard, and it goes in the hoop, and it bounces out for Butler to win the championship. Of course, they don't. That's Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward, he was a beast in college, and I hated Duke, and I was it was 2010 or 11, so I was like 7 or 8, and I was like, whoever drafts this kid is the team I'm going to like in the NBA, because I didn't know anything about the NBA. I didn't know anything about geography. I didn't know how far Utah was away from where I live. But I said, whatever team drafts this guy, I'm going to like. And it ended up being Utah. So I've been a Utah fan. Of course, when I was little, I still didn't know what being a fan was. Like, I liked the Miami Heat when they were on their win, because they were winning. And it's fun to watch winning teams when you're 7 or 8. And I like Miami Heat, but in the back of my mind, I was like, I like the Jazz. They have a cool name. Gordon Hayward's on their team, and I like Gordon Hayward. So if anybody asks me what fan of a team I am, I'm going to tell them the Jazz, even though I had no idea how good the Jazz were at the time. They sucked at the time. They weren't, like, horrible. I mean, they were, like, barely playoff contenders, but still. But at the same time, I was rooting on for the Miami Heat with LeBron, which is totally foreign now because I hate LeBron. I wouldn't say hate. I really, 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 really don't like LeBron. He's my least favorite player in the league. But that's kind of how my brain worked. And then I liked Milwaukee for a little. There was a point in time, probably 2014, where I was like, do I even want to be a Utah fan? I was like 10, but I was like, do I even want to be a Utah fan? I either want to be a Milwaukee fan or a Utah fan. Of course, I sided with Utah once again because of Gordon Hayward. If I had sided with the Bucks, I would have a championship to be celebrating right now. I love being a Utah Jazz fan, other than being more mediocre in the playoffs than anybody else. But uh, I digress. Anyway, that's the story of why I like the Jazz. And where did this story start? Like the Utah Jazz. So the summer league team went like 5-0, or 6-0. See, before this year, and I had never really paid attention all that much to the summer league. I think the first year I watched a summer league game was when Donovan Mitchell was a rookie. But I never really paid like an absolute ton of attention to the summer league, and this year our summer league team went like 5-0, 6-0, and I was like, man, we're doing really good. We have a whole summer league ahead of us. Apparently, you only play like 7 games in the summer league. I thought you played like 20. No, you play like 7. So 5-6-0. I'm like, oh, we're doing good. Apparently, there's like 4 or 5 other teams that are 5. We didn't even get like a chance to play for the championship, which annoys me. But as far as our summer league, Utah summer league team goes, we have Udoka Azubuike, who of course was the most dominant guy in college before he got hurt, who's just dominating guys in summer league, and I think he got hurt, if I'm not mistaken. And then guys like Maceo Teague just won a championship with Butler. Jared Butler, not Butler. I just said that because of Jared Butler. They just won a championship with Baylor, and Jared Butler, who just won a championship with Baylor, and then Trent Forrest, who's been with the Jazz, Jarrell Brantley, who's been with the Jazz. Then there's like the Dakota Mathias guy. I don't know where he really came from. But yeah, I mean, we had a really good summer league team, and somehow we don't even get a chance to. I think it's like point differential. It's a bunch of hoopla, a bunch of nothing, and so we don't even get a chance. And I think Sacramento Kings won the summer league. Hurrah for them! It's lame. I mean, Davion Mitchell's cool, and I'll put my hands up right now. I didn't know Davion Mitchell was such a good defender. I watched the run in the March Madness, and I knew he was a decent defender. I didn't know he was like Gary Payton levels of summer league defense. That guy is like on the best scores in the rookie class and just absolutely stopping them from doing anything at all. The famous clip that has gone viral is the one of him on Book Night, where Book Night looks like he's never played basketball before. I didn't know Davion Mitchell could defend like that. If he's going to be a premier perimeter defender if he can translate that into the NBA, and I'm excited for it because I like guys with the first initial D and the last name Mitchell. But as far as summer league goes, Sacramento winning it's kind of lame for me because I know they're not just because these guys are going to go to Sacramento and they're never going to do anything. And let's say 5 years from now, if Sacramento wins a championship, people can clip what I just said. Hopefully, 5 years from now, I'll be in Barstool Sports office, and you can send it to me that Sacramento did do something with Davion Mitchell and De'Aaron Fox, and they won a championship. But until that day, I doubt it. I highly doubt it. So watching these guys win a summer league championship for Sacramento doesn't do much for me. It's not like I can be like, man, Sacramento really has a young core coming up that's going to help them do something for once. I just don't believe it, man. I just don't believe it. Unless they get a transcendent talent, and unless they get a number one pick or something like that, I don't think they have a chance. So summer league, the big names that stood out in summer league, of course, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, uh, Jalen Suggs, Evan Mobley. Those big names. Davion Mitchell, of course, already mentioned. But there's a couple that were cool for me. Alperen Sengun, if I said his name right, had a really good summer league. LiAngelo Ball had a very, very good summer league. A guy that has had the weirdest trajectory to the NBA I've ever seen, from going from playing with two future NBA players, a number 2 and a number 3 overall, pick respectively, on the same high school team. Oh, 3 and Onyeka Okongwu was on that team as well. But I'm talking about his brothers, of course, in high school, to going to UCLA, stealing from a store in China, I believe, to getting drug around by his father in professional leagues in like Lithuania, New Zealand, and all this and that, and probably Timbuktu and everywhere you can think of. And then coming back and like being on the Detroit Pistons summer league team, or being on the training practice squad for the Detroit Pistons. Obviously, he didn't show anything there, because if you're not getting picked up by last year or 2 years ago Detroit Pistons, you're not a good NBA player. But he got on the summer league for the Hornets. Of course, LaMelo is on the Hornets, and he really showed out. He shot the ball incredibly well. Good offensive talent. I mean, you can just tell from the way he played, he's a good offensive talent. But the way he rebounds at his size is actually really, really impressive. Like, impressive for any NBA player. He's like, what? I don't know how tall he is. If I had to guess, like 6'5". He's not super tall, but the way he's built, and he's so strong, and he goes up and gets rebounds over big dudes. It's impressive, and I think he deserves a slot in the NBA. What I think that the Hornets should do is just give him a roster spot. They don't ever have to play him. We just saw the Bucks do that with Giannis and his brother, and I'm not saying LaMelo is going to be as good as Giannis was, but who's to say he's not a perennial all-star, an all-star every year. And you want to keep guys like that on your team, of course. They failed to do that with Kemba, or failed to do anything with Kemba when he was there. Why not try to keep LaMelo as long as possible? I'd sign LiAngelo and keep him there as long as you want to keep LaMelo. I think it's a good strategy, a good business strategy. LiAngelo never has to see the floor. You just pay the guy like $1 million a year. Basically, just consider that adding $1 million to LaMelo's contract. Is it worth it? Probably. Sort of outside of the summer league, but not like crazy outside of the summer league, because it's kind of involved. Peyton Pritchard went full wilt in a pro-am game. So apparently he told the Boston Celtics, summer league guys, I'm going to this pro-am in Portland. Can I get off the summer league team for a couple of days, go to this pro-am in Portland and play other NBA players, of course, that aren't in the summer league, just work on my game. He goes there and he drops 92 points. 92 points. And 10 rebounds, a few, no, not rebounds, assists, 8 rebounds. Really, I mean, obviously a really good game. You don't have to have a single other stat if you have 92 points, and it's obviously a great, incredible, fantastic game. But he had like an all well around game. I don't know how you get that many possessions in a game to have 92 points and still have like 8 assists. Blows my mind. But he did it, and it's Peyton Pritchard. Now, I think he's a good player, but if anyone at the beginning of the year was like, even in a pro-am, what NBA player is going to score 92 points? Nobody, nobody except for maybe Peyton's mother herself is going to say Peyton Pritchard. It's just not going to come out of your mouth. That really shows you how good these guys are compared to like, because he's playing against other NBA guys that aren't great but are in the NBA, as well as guys that are overseas professionals, G League players, D1 players, guys that are just really good for a pro am. And he's just absolutely dominating him. It's like absolute domination. 92 points. That's incredible. And I think the very next night he had like 52, which obviously isn't 92, but I guarantee you if he had scored 52 the first time, he still would have got Twitter attention. Maybe not as much as he got, but I would have said something about it. Man, this Peyton Pritchard kid can really play. If I'm the Celtics, I'm keeping him around, especially when their point guard position this year is Marcus Smart, that's a good way to transition. That was a good, clean transition. Marcus Smart is their new point guard in Boston because, of course, they lose Kyrie, they lose Kemba, they send Kemba away, and their next mind they're like, do we need to re-sign Marcus? Yeah, you need to re-sign Marcus. The whole team's falling apart. You were the 8th seed last year with a good roster, and look at you now. And then so they re-signed Marcus. They're like, well, he's gonna have to be our point guard. I don't think he has to be the point guard at all. We got a guy dropping 92 points in pro-am. You're telling me he can't average point guard numbers at the very least, like starting point guard caliber numbers? I beg to differ. I think he would be a just fine point guard in the league, starting point guard in the league, especially for Boston, who doesn't need their star to be their point guard. They have Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown, and offensive and obviously defensive, and then you got Marcus Smart, defensive elite player. It's not that big of a deal. I think you put Peyton Pritchard in that starting point guard spot, and I think you're going to be just fine. And so far, he hasn't showed us that he gets hurt, so it's not like Kemba or Kyrie for that matter. Next thing I have on the rundown I got here. This was a funny story. KD and Draymond blame Steve Kerr for KD leaving. I'll let you interpret this however you want to interpret, but I'll give you the rundown of it, and then I'll tell you what I think because I think it's hilarious. They were on KD and Draymond, who they're cool now. They've never really been crazy mean or mad at each other or beefed with each other like crazy, but they're cool now. And they went on a documentary thing or a show or whatever, an interview, and the guy asks them, and I apologize for saying the guy. The guy might be a very important broadcaster. I didn't watch the interview. I read the articles. And he's like, "Why'd you leave?" Or what about that fight was the moment that made you leave? And they were like, "It wasn't the fight. It wasn't the fight at all. It was that after the fight happened, Draymond comes back and the higher ups, Steve Kerr and their general manager, they're like, you need to apologize to KD. You need to apologize to KD, and if you don't, we're gonna suspend you." And Draymond apparently was like, "That's a joke. You're not gonna tell me what I can and can't apologize for. If I want to apologize, I'll apologize, and I probably will apologize. But I'm not gonna apologize if you're telling me to, because that's not how I roll." And so he doesn't apologize. I guess he doesn't apologize from what I read. And KD agrees with him. He says if they had just worked it out like men, he may still be in Golden State, which is a very scary thing to think about. Of course, we don't know if the health situation would have ever been good enough for them to win another championship. But let's say a healthy Golden State team comes back with even an old KD, old Steph, old Clay. They're still championship winners. There's not even any doubt in my mind about it. Draymond too. So yeah, they're blaming it on Steve Kerr. I kind of can see it maybe. At the same time, I don't think Kevin Durant was staying in Golden State whether that fight happens or not. I think he's out anyway. He tarnished his reputation with the fans, got his rings, got out. That's all he needed to do. He needed to make sure he didn't retire ringless. He got there. He did that. He accomplished his goal, and he was going to go. He was set on and going on his journey elsewhere to join another super team somewhere else, but not in Golden State. And I think he was set on that well before that fight happened. And maybe if that fight was the exclamation point on the compound sentence, then exclamation point it was. because I don't see that being the sole factor for him leaving. I just don't. I just think it's funny that Steve Kerr has probably gone under the radar this whole time. KD left with that fight. Draymond was responsible. It may have been Steve Kerr. Who knows? I don't like Steve Kerr either. I don't like a lot of things if you haven't figured that out already. Uh, this is a funny story. Pat Bev getting passed around the league. Of course, Pat Bev starts this week on the Clippers. Of course, the original big 3 6-man triple three-headed monster in Los Angeles that was Pat Bev, Lou Williams, and Montrezl Harrell are all gone. Of course, Lou is on the Hawks. Trez is now on the Wizards, and Pat Bev is now just being tossed around the league like a unwanted like an unwanted stray dog. He gets traded to Memphis for Eric Bledsoe. Him, Rajon Rondo, and somebody else. Oh, Daniel Oturu, I think, get traded to Memphis for Eric Bledsoe. Crappy trade for the Clippers, in my opinion, but I won't delve into that. And then he gets there and he tweets out, "Grit and grind, let's go." Maybe 3 hours later, he's traded to the Timberwolves, and he's traded to the Timberwolves. Him and I feel like it's some no, it was him alone for Jarrett Culver and Juancho Hernan Gomez. Of course, Jarrett Culver, they're already giving up on the guy. It's been 2 years. I know he hasn't shown that he can really handle himself in the league, but come on, it's been 2 years. You're gonna trade him away for Patrick Beverley. I don't think Patrick Beverley is gonna make the Timberwolves any better than they were this past year. And if they are, it's not like they're not getting in the playoffs, whether he's there or not. Even if they do get better, if I'm them, I want to stay bad so I can get high draft picks. Who cares? But of course, he gets past there, and he's super excited about this trade. I can't wait to help these young dogs that are hungry for wins to get. Come on, I would be willing to bet that by the end of the week, he is no longer with the Minnesota Timberwolves. In fact, what I've seen is that Ben Simmons is a target for the Timberwolves, and that Patrick Beverley is likely going to be a very vital part of the trade if that trade is made. So I don't. No one knows where he's going to end up this season, Patrick Beverley. I wouldn't mind if he ended up with the Utah Jazz and it was coming off the bench. He won't, because we've made free agency signings already. We're over the cap, but it doesn't matter to me. Patrick Beverley being on a team is probably not going to dash your team's chances at a championship. So I think it's just funny that his tweets kind of coincided with him getting immediately traded to another team. And this is one I kind of wanted to spend the meat and potatoes on. My top 5 for Rookie of the Year, and I made a blog about it. Of course, nobody reads the blogs. The blogs are simply content fillers. As much as I do put time and work into them, and I care about them, they get 10 views each. They're not doing great, but I mean, they do what they need to do for the time being, and I think as Threewind grows, they'll grow too, and that's not the point. I think also working on blogging and being consistent is important, so I'm going to be consistent and work on my writing. So that's all that matters about that. And stay in the loop. So, yeah, the blogs are a great way to stay in the loop. If you don't want to watch games or watch the Summer League, read the blogs. I mean, I'll put one or two out every day, and they do well enough for me to be fine with doing them. And then when I do the local sports one, of course, they get 60 to 100 views, and on a blog, that's pretty good for me. And then when I do one, or when we do one, anything other than basketball does pretty well, because the region I live in is not a basketball region. It is a football and baseball region. And that's fine. That's why I think I have the liberty to talk about basketball on the podcast and less on the blog, as much as that's the only thing I talk about on the blog. And I wish we could get the blogging team to really put their heads together and blog more. But I'm not going to demand. No one's getting paid. I'm not getting paid for this. They're not getting paid for that. So, blogging's blogging. It's boring for them. I think it's pretty fun. But my top 5 Rookie of the Year, I did make the blog, and I'm not going to change anything. At number 5, I have Evan Mobley. And I think Evan Mobley actually was probably one of the better players in the top 5. Originally, he was my number 2 pick overall, and Jalen Green was my number 3. And so Evan Mobley, I think, is going to end up being one of the better players in this draft. However, he's on the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think they have one of the worst looking builds that a team can have. No spacing at all. All their big men are useless from the 3. I know Jared Allen has shot the 3 a couple times. Not really good, though. So their spacing is weird and crappy and not good. and then their guard situation is kind of misshaped and not right. I just think he's not in the right situation to win it, and even if he puts up a good stat line, he's not gonna be the first option either. So he's gonna struggle to win it. But I think being a number 5 in that kind of situation is fine. At number 4, I had Josh Giddey, who of course is one of the best playmaking prospects we've seen in a very long time. From Australia, he got drafted to the OKC Thunder, a team that desperately needs playmaking. I think SGA, and he's a great shot creator, created 87% of his shots this season. 87%. That is insane that a guy created 87% of his shots. You know how huge a pass first playmaker at the point's going to be for SGA? It's going to be massive, dude. This kid can come in and average a ton of assists in his very first year. I don't think he'll win it. He doesn't have the storyline to win it, and he's not going to be a first scoring option. In these days of basketball, scoring comes first. And scoring's obviously probably the most important, but everybody focuses a little too much on scoring. I think an assist is worth the same amount of points as a field goal. But yeah. So I think he'll come in and I think he'll average a lot of assists as well as a good point. I think he'll be good on his offensive game as well. So I think he's my number 4. 1 through 3 is tough for me, and people get mad at me for putting him in this order. I think my reasoning is just fine. At 3, I have Jalen Green. Of course, people, he's probably the best offensive prospect in this draft. Not a great defender, not elite at anything else. He's an elite scorer, which I just said is the most. When people are looking through the lens of Rookie of the Year, the first thing they look at is points per game, and that's just true. But at the same time, he's not. I don't think he'll be the first option right away, and if he is, it'll be later in the season. He's got KPJ, Christian Wood, John Wall, and I know he's going to be a better scorer than probably 2 or 3 of those guys. KPJ is still trying to prove himself, and I think he's a good scorer. And then he's got another rookie with him in Sengun, who just showed in the summer league that he's going to be a dominant threat. So he's just not going to be the number 1 option. He's not going to get nearly as many touches and shots as he did in the summer league. And I don't see him winning the Rookie of the Year because of that. I think his stats are going to decline because of that. Even though the Rockets suck, just the way the people they have in place kind of clashes with Jalen. At 2, I have Cade Cunningham. Kind of the same situation as Jalen, where he's joining a team that has other weapons that they'll give the ball to. The difference is I could see Cade being the number 1 option right away. Of course, you have Jeremy Grant there, and Jeremy Grant is a fantastic player. Don't get me wrong. But I think Cade could come in and be just as good as him right away. So, like, borderline all-star, maybe like halfway borderline all-star right away. He's not quite as good of a scorer as Green, but he's a really, really, really good scorer, and he's a better defender, better playmaker, blah, blah, blah. All the other things. So, yeah, I think number 2 for him is fair. He's in Detroit, which sucks. He does have the storyline, but being in Detroit is immediately a bad mark on your Rookie of the Year campaign. Number 1 for me, and it's not concrete, and I can't say any of these are concrete, but Jalen Suggs is a really good number one pick for Rookie of the Year for me. His floor is so high. I think he has the highest floor. I think he's the most NBA ready guy out of this draft. He goes to Orlando, who has no bona fide first option. They just don't. They have Cole Anthony, not a first option there over Suggs. They have Marco Fultz, not over Suggs. You really can't think of many other guys there that would be over Suggs. He's with Wagner, of course, who's a good player as well, or Wagner. Wagner is the correct way to say that in German terminology. I know because Mo Wagner was Michigan before Franz Wagner. I don't know how you say his first name, actually. I know Wagner is the correct way to say the last name. Either way, I think he's going to be the first option right away. He'll be the best scorer on the team, and he'll be the best playmaker on the team, and he's a really good defender. I think all the X's, I think all the good signs of a Rookie of the Year are pointing towards him, other than the fact he's in Orlando, and Orlando isn't great, and they're going to probably be one of the worst, if not the worst or second worst team in the league. But I think he has the best chance at winning the Rookie of the Year, and I'm pretty, I can't say I'm 100% certain of that, but I'm pretty confident that's a good choice. So yeah, it went like this. It goes Evan Mobley at 5. Cleveland's situation is going to be tough for him to win. And then at 4, Josh Giddey, he's going to be creating a ton of SGA shots. Number 3, Jalen Green, he's a great elite scorer, but he's with other good scorers. Number 2, Cade Cunningham, he's not quite as elite at anything, but he's the best well-rounded player. But he's in Detroit, and he has other guys that are going to be taking touches away from him. And then finally at number 1, Jalen Suggs. He's in the perfect opportunity to win Rookie of the Year in Orlando, and I think I think it's on the fingertips, and I think he just needs to go out and grab it. Those are all the topics I have as far as basketball goes, and I know it's not a super deep and thrilling and hilarious podcast, and I can't get quite the chemistry with the fact that there's not a single human beside me on either side. But if any of you care about anything Threewind, I think this is probably the most vital and important podcast to listen to, because the last few minutes here I'm going to be going over what I plan to do with Threewind and what direction I want to take it. First off, I want to talk about involving myself in sports other than basketball. So I'm a Bills fan as far as football goes, but I'm not like a diehard Bills fan. I've been a Bills fan for like a year, like 2 years. So I watch them. I like them. I'm gonna really try to get into them. I don't have a baseball team. That's the big issue on my sports resume. I don't have a baseball team. I need to find a baseball team. I love Shohei Ohtani. This is a Shohei Ohtani podcast. He's a friend of the show. This is a Shohei Ohtani podcast. But I don't want to be a team. I don't want to be a fan of a team in Los Angeles. I don't want to be a fan of a team in California. I don't like California. I don't want to go to a home. I don't want to dream of going to a home game and be in California. I don't like California. So that's a no-no for me. I can't be an Angels fan. Plus, it's annoying to be an Angels fan. They have the best players in the league and they still suck. That's annoying. I don't want to see that. And then I just don't have a baseball team. I'll have to figure it out. I'll either pick. I don't want to pick the Rockies, which is the closest thing to Utah, which would work out. And I'd be in that same region because the Rockies are so bad. I want to pick a middling team, an average team. I don't want to be a bandwagon. Voice crack. I don't want to be a bandwagon. On joining a team that's really good, and I don't want to be a, bottom of the barrel horrible team fan like the Rockies. I want to be a fan of a middling team that's just average, makes the playoffs but doesn't win right now, but has a chance to win in the future. That's my baseball team aspirations. As far as hockey goes, I call myself a Colorado Avalanche fan. I cannot name one player on the Avalanche. I'll put my hands up right now. I'll admit to it. Can't name one player on the Avalanche. I think their jerseys are incredibly sick, and they have a cool name, and they're near Utah. That's all I needed to hear, so I'm going to try to get more into that. Cricket, maybe. Other random weird sports. Of course, the goal for this is to end up with Barstool Sports. They don't have a cricket guy as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know. They don't have a cricket guy. They don't have a badminton ping pong guy. They have a tennis guy. I play tennis. I guarantee you I could beat Barstool's tennis guy in a tennis match. I guarantee it. 100% guarantee it. But they don't have a guy for weird sport. They need a guy for weird sports. Not like to only talk about weird sports. Obviously, I'm a basketball guy. I want to talk about basketball. But the badminton Grand Prix might be going on. I want to talk about badminton. Who doesn't want to hear about it? That's what I'm talking about. But Barstool needs a guy like that. And I'll do anything Barstool wants me to do to work for Barstool. Where I want Threewind to go, of course, I just said it. I want Threewind to go to Barstool. Barstool is the end goal. I want to work for Barstool Sports. I think it's an amazing company. Their content they produce is amazing. I want to work with those people. Blog, podcast. I can talk for days about sports. I can be funny. I can go back and forth with guys. I watch all their content, keep up with all their stuff. I think I can meld great in there with them. I, of course, want to bring my buddies that are on this podcast along with me, but at the same time, they need to put the work in as well, because I don't want to go apply for Barstool, bring Threewind, with me, and then be like, well, how many blogs are on the site? 160. How many did you write? 145. We can't bring these other two guys because they haven't done any work, right? So I want, in my dreams of Threewind, is to bring my friends with me to Barstool Sports. But, they're going to have to work for it. I'm not going to make them do it. But if they do it, and I'm going to do everything in my power to get them there as well. I want to grow all of our social medias. Of course, Instagram's doing great. Threewind Sports on Instagram is doing fantastic. And then Threewind Sports on TikTok has done very good. I had a video hit 200,000 views. That's incredible. 200,000 views. I think like 40,000 likes, maybe between 35 and 40,000 likes. Very, very good. Like 770 something followers on there, man. It's and it's very quick growth, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. Facebook, we've got a Threewind Sports Facebook that I'm trying to grow. We have a Threewind Sports not TikTok, Twitter. That I hate Twitter so much. Twitter is so miserable to be on and use, but I've got to use it. I've got to use it. If I want to get better at this, I've got to use it. So we have a Threewind Sports Twitter that I'm trying to grow. We have, of course, the YouTube and the podcast that I'm trying to grow all the time. Putting work in constantly is what I want to go. I am in an awesome room right now. We have a full podcast setup that you're watching right now. Of course, you can watch this on YouTube. You might be on the audio version, listening in on Apple Podcast or Spotify. But we're in an awesome room. We've got a nice little studio here. We've got over there, we've got a full streaming setup if someone wanted to stream games. And over here, I've got empty space that I could put fold up tables as desks, and buddies could come in and blog or work on content. I want to fully maximize the potential. Of course, I'm in my final year of high school, and I'm going to college after this, and I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep working on this throughout college. Going to keep podcasting. Going to keep blogging. Going to keep working on all the social media stuff through through college. I fully intend on doing so, but it's going to be hard. Hard. Why do I keep voice cracking? It's going to be hard. And especially because I guarantee you all three of us are not going to end up at the same college. If I think is the better chance, there's a better chance that me and Charlie end up at the same college than me and Eston, or Charlie and Eston. There's a really good chance we all end up at different colleges because they're kind of more centralized to where we are. Charlie goes out a little bit, and I'll go literally anywhere. My parents don't want me to. But I'll go literally anywhere that I think is the best opportunity for me, and the best opportunity for Threewind. That's always in the back of my head, and the best opportunity for me to move this forward and make my way to Barstool. So wherever that is, if I have to go to New England, a college in New England for the best opportunity for that, that's where I'm gonna go. So yeah, that's Threewind. I just keep growing it, keep getting better. Start working harder. Once we've got this podcast set up, it was all, roses and sunshine and rainbows because it took us 6 months to get the podcast started. We do one episode, and that's the first episode. We got all three of us. Then we do 3 episodes or 2 episodes without one of the people. And then we have another episode without one of the people. And then we get random people in here. Of course, I invited them on, and I think they're great guests. People can't figure out how to use microphones. All this and that. And it's just the point where... we got the podcast started. Now it's time to keep going. It's time to be consistent. It's time to work hard. I'm happy. I'm super excited that we got it started. We can't stop now. Last week was a lapse of time. I feel bad about it. I should have done what I'm doing right now and sat down on my own and did the podcast on my own. But I didn't think about it. It snuck up on me, and by Friday, the time when the podcast is supposed to go out, it didn't go out. So we missed a week. On the 7th episode, we missed a week. That's too soon, man. We got to be 50, 100 episodes in before we're missing a week. We're just not working hard enough. We need to work harder. But yeah, that's as much as I'm gonna say about all that. Of course, if you know me personally, I'm gonna work as hard as I possibly can to push this as far as it possibly can go. If you don't, I'm happy you're here, and I'm happy you're watching and or listening. If you want to find us anywhere, you can find us anywhere. Of course, you can get on the YouTube right now at Threewind Sports YouTube. TikTok, Threewind Sports. It's Threewind Sports on everything. Threewind Sports on Twitter, Facebook, and of course Instagram, where we have the most constant content put out, and the most followers on there. The most people are seeing that content is going to be on Instagram. That's really all I've got to say. Hopefully next week we will have at least 2 of the 3 out of us, so we can go back and forth a little bit, and I don't have to just talk about basketball on here. And maybe I will do a little bit more prep work and talk about other sports. And by then, maybe there will be a little bit more going on in the world of sports. I thank you for listening in. I thank you for watching in. And make sure you subscribe on YouTube if you're watching. And if you're listening in on whatever you're listening in on, make sure you're following and rating. And following us on whatever you can follow us on. That would mean the absolute world to me. So thank you, and I'll see you next week.